Pokemon's Johto region and I have a complicated relationship. 4 years ago. What, you thought every video was just gonna be like that now? Come on, this channel's here to make content. I hope you're hungry. Most Nuzlocke encounter tier lists on the internet, including mine from 4 years ago, are pretty much just vibes based. So I sat down and did Nuzlocke test runs of Pokemon HeartGold and SoulSilver using every single available encounter in the game to find out which Pokemon are the best and which ones are the worst. Well, I tested almost every Pokemon in the game, but we'll get to that. Right off the bat, HeartGold and SoulSilver are among the easiest games in the entire series. But they still have quite a few Pokemon that are just not going to do anything for you. Or worse, actively hurt your run. AKA the F-tier Pokemon. So when I say Flareon is an F-tier Pokemon, it's not because it fails to do fricking anything. I'm sure it sweeps Erica or something like that, but this list is primarily a guide of what encounters you want to route for in your Nuzlocke, and why. In this case, there's just no good reason to ever use Flareon over any of the other evolutions. I mean, some Pokemon are obviously just terrible, right? Ditto is a Pokemon that puts you behind by 2 turns when you switch it in, and then rewards you with a worse version of your opponent's Pokemon. Unknown is famously terrible, but it's even worse than you think in this game. It messes up your encounter routing. This is going to come up over and over again throughout this script. Pay attention, this is going to be on the test. Nuzlocke rules state that you can only catch the first Pokemon on every route, and hardcore Nuzlockers also play with a duplicate clause, stating that you can't catch a Pokemon you've already caught before. Thanks to the relatively small number of Pokemon available on most routes, it's possible to guarantee some very useful encounters for the early and mid-game, if you follow correct routing. Conversely, it's also possible to severely screw yourself over if you route incorrectly. Unknown only shows up in the ruins of Alph. The area outside the cave counts as the same route, so getting Unknown inside the cave means you can't get the Natu or Smeargle, both far superior Pokemon from the grass outside. Smeargle in particular isn't available anywhere else, so taking Unknown here strictly makes your run worse. Some of this encounter routing gets much more complicated. That's the biggest reason why Persian is F tier, beyond the fact that most other normal types do what it does better. It's on the encounter table for both Route 38 and 39, which are nearly identical. Meowth's presence here is a huge bummer, because there are a lot of big hits on these routes, mostly Tauros and Miltank, and the big one, Magnemite. If it weren't for Meowth, you could easily use Repels to manipulate level 16 Magnemite to get a guaranteed catch on either of these routes. If you use a Repel, you will only encounter wild Pokemon that are the same level or higher than your lead Pokemon. You'll probably have a Rattata already at this point, and its evolution would be a duplicate. Farfetch only appears during the daytime. Using a Repel with a level 16 or higher Pokemon on routes 38 and 39 at night therefore forces a 50-50 between Meowth and Magnemite. This is called Repel Manipping and is required to guarantee good Pokemon on a lot of routes in HeartGold SoulSilver. Granbull, whose first form Snubbull you also see on this encounter table, is F tier for the exact same reason. Routes 38 and 39 are the only places where it shows up, and getting it is actively detrimental. At least you can Repel Manip the dog since it's only level 15 on these routes, but it doesn't do anything to make up for what you'll miss out on if it shows up here. Quillfish is outclassed by other water types and has an awful moveset, oh god. Importantly, you'd have to severely screw up your early game encounter routing if you want to fish this up on Route 32. Hold on, apparently there's another way of encountering this thing though? Wait, what the hell are swarms? What? Ariados might be the worst early game bug of all time. Bad type, bad stats, bad moves, dad doesn't love it, trashy tramp stamp, problematic views on Ukraine. Ledian is another notoriously terrible bug type, and me and the other Nuzlockers I consulted couldn't really find a fight where its utility moves did anything. I think I'm gonna have to baton pass on this one. Alright, I get it. They can't all be winners. Honestly, Sandshrew is just down here because it pissed me off. It makes pretty much every Safari Zone encounter uncatchable. To unlock... I can't believe this whole system. To unlock the area customizer, which you need to get your encounters in Safari Zone, you have to first catch a Geodude in the Safari Zone, which would then just be your encounter. But then you also have to catch a Sandshrew after. At least Geodude is a common early game mon that most people route for. Sandshrew is the reason I didn't include any of the Pokemon you can catch in the Safari Zone on this tier list. Other than that, this list really is definitive. Okay, there will be like one more exception, maybe 2, but we'll get to those. Delibird, much like the holiday it is themed after, is too expensive of an investment to have a good time with. Literally any ice type feels like it could have a niche here thanks to the fact that Lance would go to a Dragonite convention if it existed. But the niche just isn't there. It's also so unfortunate that this guy shows up in Ice Path, where you'd really love to lock in a Jinx, but can't guarantee it because Delibird can show up and ruin everything. If anything, Delibird is another reason to play HeartGold, as it's a SoulSilver exclusive. In C tier, we mostly have Pokemon that either provide no actual value but don't hurt your run, or provide marginal value by helping your routing or doing tiny things on niche fights. Fire-type Pokemon pretty much only have one niche on the important fights in this game. I'll get into that later, but Magcargo can't fill that niche because it's too slow to do so. Also, oh my god, you can't get this thing until so late. What the hell are the encounter tables in Gen 2, man? At least this doesn't hurt your run. Running out the F tier are Donphan, Dugtrio, Muck, and Weezing. They all have just mediocre stats, and you get them way too late for them to do anything. They're just not going to provide any value to your run. Speaking of providing value, oh, would you look at the time? What, this? Oh, that's just my new watch from this video sponsor, Holzkern. This is the Mineo watch made from koa wood and marble. The rings I got are the Numerary ring in walnut and gray, and the Sumo ring in meteorite and tungsten. Holzkern is a family-owned watch and jewelry brand over from Vienna, Austria. Beautiful city, by the way. Holzkern specializes in creating one-of-a-kind timepieces and jewelry for both men and women, using natural materials like wood. That means every single piece is totally unique. No two are ever the same. It's kind of like how Kurt from HeartGold SoulSilver somehow makes perfectly usable Pokeballs out of only natural products. Because I speak German, I can even tell you that the name Holzkern means wood core in German. Yeah, that's the kind of educational content you come to my bilingual channel for. Everything at Holzkern is produced in small batches for ethical and sustainable manufacturing, and they back it all with a 2-year guarantee. Plus, shipping is fast and free. Worldwide, straight from Vienna to your doorstep, and that in just 2 to 5 business days. And don't worry about customs, Holzkern covers those too. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description and use my code pChal to save 15% off at checkout on the entire site for a limited time only. So if you're looking for some S tier accessories, check out Holzkern. Anyway, oh, time for C tier. Primeape's problem is its typing. To quote my notes from when I was doing my test runs, holy shit, dude, fuck, holy no, oh no, oh, fighting types are so cringe, dude. Cringe, cringe, cringe. This cringe has 6 G's. In this generation, god, cringe, cringe, cringe fighting types. Continuing on the fighting types or ass train, the 3 Hitmons also sit in the bottom of C tier. The closest thing I could think of a niche would be Iron Fist Ice Punch on Hitmonchan to take on Lance's Dragonites, but it misses the one shot, so that's pointless. There is no choice band to be acquired in this game for the Elite Four. For some reason, we only get choice specs. Pinsir is a bug and not a fighter, but it has basically the same problem, as it kinda only learns fighting type moves. It's an underwhelming physical threat and doesn't have a single fight where it outshines the rest of the field. Cloyster doesn't provide anything that other water ice types can't do better, but it does help your routing. Catching Shelter guarantees a Chinchu encounter on either Route 41 or 47. Beedrill is a really convenient dupe if you can find it early, because you really badly want to hit Scyther in the bug catching contest. Yeah, that's also a thing in this game as well. The Beedrill line is a solid 35% of the bug catching contest encounter table. Sorry, I'm going to focus back up. Other than that, it has a very niche use against Whitney, able to kill her Clefairy and set up 2 string shots against Miltank before you sacrifice it. Just enough for C tier. Pidgeot didn't do much for me, except for inspiring this haircut. You don't even get Pidgeotto for Bugsy or Wing Attack for Morty. It does at least make it easier to get Girafarig on Route 43 if you get it early. And yes, that's going to turn into a very big deal later on. Victory Bell is heavily dragged down by the fact that grass types are generally bad in this game. It does at least offer value as a sleep powder bot, but honestly, its biggest value might be that you can trade a Bellsprout for Onix in Violet City. I'll be ranking Steelix separately, I guess, but it's worth mentioning that even Onix by itself is a C tier Pokemon, able to help you out early in bug and flying gyms if you miss out on the Geodude that you really want to fill that role. A normal type with a solid ghost move will always have some value in a game with a ghost type gym, so Ambipom is able to slide into C tier as Apom. Others do it better though, and its best asset is the fact that it's an important dupe for finding the much more important headbutt encounters. Mantine is useless on the Elite Four, unfortunately. I had hoped that it could do what many water types do and help out with Claire's Kingdra, but it's just not quite tanky enough to do the job. Tanky Pokemon are just also really bad in this game because you don't get toxic until you beat Janine and Kanto. Alright, another small annoyance about this game to add to the list. Man, these vanilla games are so stupid. I wonder what ROM hack everyone's playing right now.
Please kill him. Okay. Thank you. Mamma mia.
Machamp hits a bit harder than the slew of fighters that opened up the tier, but it's not enough to give it any real late game niche. The best thing this line has going for it is that you can acquire a female Machop by trading a Drowsy with an NPC at the Goldenrod department store, giving you a fine, but not great, answer for Miltank. There might be a niche for artillery out there for some brave soul to find, most likely turning it into a recipient for agility boosts from a baton pass user and then using choice specs or something, but it's way too much work and artillery shows up too late in the game anyway. Seriously, did you know you can't get this guy until after Claire? Same with Dawnfan. What is going on? Sorry, Golduck avoids an F tier fate because it can sweep price, but it doesn't go any higher because really, who doesn't? Fortress is an S tier wall, but that's not that helpful in a Nuzlocke context where you do eventually need to do some damage. I racked my brain trying to find ways to use it, but its best niche appears to be its ability to use Bug Bite to steal Miltank's Lumberry so that something else can status it. I mean, a steel type's always going to be good. Dragonite would probably be sick, but we'll never know because it evolves at level 55 and the Elite 4 level cap is 47. Its most likely time to shine is against Red, where it can safely set up on Pikachu if you first use Knockoff or Thief to remove its Light Ball. I couldn't find a niche for Yanmega or Venomoth anywhere, but they don't mess up anything in your routing at least. Arbok does one thing, but it does it pretty well. That's supplying support against Whitney's Miltank, which doesn't want to deal with any Intimidates, Glares, or Screeches. Jolteon is actually amazing. It's one of the better electric types in the game. It has enough speed to even outrun Blue's Gyarados if it manages to set up a Dragon Dance. It's down here with a bunch of Pokemon that can't make half that impact because you're giving up strictly better evolutions and Goldenrod Game Corner encounters if you want to use it, and you can find other electric types that can fill its role really easily. Unfortunately for Jolteon, opportunity cost is a big factor when it comes to these decisions. Vileplume, Blossom, and Tangrowth are some of the better grass types you can get, but unfortunately grass types just don't do anything in this game. Dodrio's biggest sin is showing up too late in the game to get the chance to differentiate itself from the other birds. It's probably better than Fearow, like in a vacuum, but by the time you get it, you'll wish you have caught something else instead. Marowak is pretty low on the tier list of ground types in this game, but it can at least lead against Red and take on his Pikachu before going down. Shuckle is unkillable and can PP stall you out of a jam if you really needed to, but it is rarely capable of making progress. And man, those fights would be so slow. It does give you the opportunity to check your emails though. Let's see, cease and desist, cease and desist, cease and desist, spam, cease and desist, unpaid invoice. Anyone check their Bingus token recently? I haven't been able to get into my wallet. Wait, what is this? Dear Mr. Kruger, we're reaching out on behalf of the European Commissioner's Office about your involvement with the beverage company Arson. Uh-oh. Wobbuffet can stand up to one of the toughest Pokemon in the game, Claire's Kingdra, assuming you don't get crit. Togetic lacks the oomph to contribute to the Elite Four or other similarly difficult battles, but it does have some very niche early game applications. With the Yawn and Wish combo, it's great at supporting the team while you chip away at Whitney's Miltank. It's also a nice normal type to help deal with Morty, particularly his Gengar. Despite the fact that Kingdra is one of the most devastating enemy Pokemon to go up against, it's a mediocre encounter for the player. You can consider bringing it to the Elite Four to help out with your matchup into Lance's Dragons, but it's merely okay in that role, and it's mostly dead weight on the fights leading up to him. Pretty disappointing, honestly. Tauros is absolutely godlike against random trainers, I'll give it that. It's very nice to be able to turn your brain off and go through the masses of baby mode difficulty trainers with some speed, because this game will threaten to bore you to death otherwise. But its niche on the Elite Four is small at best. The final Pokemon in C tier is the one from the thumbnail. Ho-Oh. You've been waiting for this, right? I'll try to make it short. I tried to find a use for it. I really tried, but I seriously don't see it. This isn't just clickbait. The typing is just so inconvenient. But I mean, you should probably still play HeartGold because the encounter routing is so much easier. HeartGold is definitely better than SoulSilver, I guess. As we get into the Pokemon that actually do something, we should probably define what it means to do something in the HeartGold, SoulSilver, Nuzlocke. What are the actual difficult fights you need to overcome? After rigorous testing, I think here are the fights you actually need to pay attention to in HeartGold, SoulSilver. Bugsy's Scyther, Whitney's Miltank, Morty, if you haven't figured out that you can cheese him with basically every normal type in the game, Truck's RNG checks, Dying of Boredom in the insanely long mid-game, Claire's Kingdra, the Kimono Girls, which are a surprisingly tough gauntlet that I've actually seen people wipe to, the entire Elite Four with a special shout out to Karen's Houndoom, Lance's entire team especially, Dying of Boredom in Kanto, and finally, the fight against Gym Leader Blue. Red doesn't make the list because it's a champion fight with no prior Elite Four. You can just sacrifice 5 Pokemon on this and get through for free, assuming you had the patience to grind to his level cap. Speaking of which, because his Pikachu is significantly higher level than the rest of his Pokemon, the player has a huge advantage here. What really makes Red an inconsequential fight, however, is the fact that 4 of his Pokemon have recharge moves that they are extremely eager to use. Coupled with the fact that you can sacrifice as much as you want here, this basically means that you have an entire free turn to do whatever you want on nearly all of his Pokemon. Again, these are all the threats. If you want to make it into the upcoming tiers, this is what you have to beat. This is where Pokemon that actually do something tangibly useful on these important fights show up. Licky Licky is a normal type that learns almost every relevant TM. It can set up with Swords Dance, sweep with Rollout or Body Slam, provide coverage with Ice Beam and Surf, and heal up with Rest. It's just that other Pokemon do this much better and it's really slow. So, Smeargle. This thing is complicated as hell to use. If you want to see what it can do, I recommend you check out Flygon HG's SoulSilver Hardcore Nuzlocke where he used only Smeargles. Sunflora actually has a pretty powerful set. Sunny Day with 3 moves that use the sun extremely well: Growth, Solar Beam, and Synthesis. Mischievous and Politoed also have the ability to take down Claire's Kingdra, all thanks to one move, Perish Song. You'll have to navigate the fight in a way that leaves the Kingdra as the last mon to prevent it from just switching out, but any answer against that monster is welcome. Corsola belongs here because it does work in one important fight as an Arcanine counter against Blue, and that thing is kind of a demon. I actually found this really cool strat you can do with Furret. To do this, you need to let it over-level Claire's level cap in her gym fight. You can achieve this by getting Furret just barely in range of leveling up, then leading with it and immediately switching out on Gyarados, killing the water type with something else, so Furret gains XP. If you do this, Furret will learn Amnesia mid-fight, and you can set up on Dragonair while constantly healing yourself with Rest. Getting to +6 that way means you can actually just sweep the rest of the fight. You know, assuming you never get crit. Yeah, this strat kind of sucks. The biggest problem though is getting Furret usually means you're missing out on the Raticate line, which throws a wrench into a lot of optimal routing plans later on. Farfetch'd and Fearo's biggest asset is learning Aerial Ace for Chuck, whose Primeape likes to spam Double Team. Yep, there's no Aerial Ace TM before this gym in HeartGold SoulSilver. For some reason, this game... Raticate makes Chuck's gym easy as a Shadow Claw learning normal type. It's worse in battle than some of the others we've already pointed out here like Furret, but getting a Raticate or a Tata is still more likely to push the run to the finishing line. It's a dupe on so many critical routes like the Route 38 and 39 pair with Magneton I talked about earlier. This routing can honestly get so much more complicated than I've mentioned here. There's a whole document I'll link in the description, and you can guarantee a shocking number of Pokemon in the early game if you do it right. I was genuinely surprised by Slowbro. I thought this thing would be so much better. I just couldn't find a niche for it. And my co-writers and HeartGold SoulSilver Nuzlocking experts Drazerk and Spega agreed that it's notoriously overrated in this game. Parasect has one really obvious strength: Spore. Fully accurate sleep is very hard to find, and it can be a huge asset on 2 nasty early game Pokemon. Putting Whitney's Miltank to sleep is one of the best ways to handle it, and it's also a solid counter to Chuck's Poliwrath, resisting both Focus Punch and Surf. Noctowl is mostly a B tier thanks to its pivotal role in optimal encounter routing, another very common Pokemon that can be duped out of many routes if you get it early enough. That said, it does have a good amount of early game utility. It beats Claire and solos Morty thanks to its normal typing. It might be tempting to use Noctowl against Chuck as well, but it definitely cannot do it. Unfortunately, the level cap comes literally 1 level before Noctowl learns Air Slash, and Peck just isn't good enough. Umbreon can do some really powerful stuff with the right partner. Sand Attack, Rest, and Captivate, once you're in Kanto, combine to give it tons of utility. Pair it with a Jumpluff, and I'm not sure there's a single fight you can't beat. It's down here for 2 reasons. It does rely on having the right partners to get full value, and more importantly, opportunity cost. We still haven't reached the top of the line when it comes to evolutions. Xatu takes some patience to use. It doesn't get any good Psychic type moves, unless you keep it as a useless Natu until the Elite 4 level cap, but if you can handle the weight, it can provide some value on the Elite 4. Jinx has a truly tragic moveset. Where are the Psychic moves? Oh, the Psychic TM? Yeah, that's in Saffron City in Kanto, and there's only one of it! This game, dude. That's fine. Just put the Pokemon in the bag. Just put the Pokemon in the bag. Just put the Pokemon in the bag, bro. But for real, Jinx still does work against Lance, thanks to outspeeding and killing all 3 of his Dragonites. You'll have to have a pivot because it does not bait them down the line, but it's enough for B tier. The only niche for fire types in this game is on Blue. If you lead with a strong fire type with choice specs, you can one-shot his Executor and bait Rhydon next, and we'll explore in a bit why that's relevant. You might have to sacrifice the fire type to make this work, but that's no big deal. This niche elevates Magmar, Ninetales, Rapidash, Arcanine, and Typhlosion all up into B tier. Kingler is one of the Pokemon that can pay off that specs fire type strategy I just talked about. It can come in on Blue's Rhydon, kill it with Surf, and then bait in the Machamp. This Machamp has no guard, and I think a lot of people forget that the move no guard doesn't just make the users always hit, it makes the enemy always hit too. And Kingler learns the move Guillotine, and should always outspeed Machamp, meaning that it chain kills both the Rhydon and the Machamp every single time. Seeking also does this, except with Horn Drill instead of Guillotine, and provides slightly more value throughout the run, but it's good enough. Gligar is an even better Machamp counter because it doesn't even need the previous setup. Because of Gligar's typing, it can come in on any of Machamp's moves, as long as it's holding a berry to heal the confusion. Then you always outspeed and kill with Guillotine. This is probably my favorite niche strategy I found in all of my testing. Just look at my reaction to this. Alright, here's Machamp. It's about to Dynamic Punch. or Earthquake. We have Prismberry Gligar. We go in, and then No Guard affects us too, and we fucking guillotine the bitch! Alright, show him, Gligar. God, it's so free. He's too sick with it, man. He's too sick with it! Rhydon would be in contention for S tier if you just got it earlier. Unfortunately, all the best times for a rock ground type to shine happen before you get access to it. Electrode is one of the rare electric types that can outrun Blue's Gyarados after it Dragon Dances. It's also a solid lead on Lance, although if you do that, you probably want to explode on the next Pokemon, and that would mean you can't use it on Blue. Exeggutor isn't going to be the star damage dealer at any point in the game, but it can run a nasty support set with Leech Seed, Reflect, and Hypnosis. You can honestly use this thing without ever clicking an attacking move and get great value out of it. It shines brightest against Claire, where it can sit on the Kingdra and let you get control of the battle with Leech Seed. You can also evolve this super early because you get access to all the evolution stones via the Pokeathlon. I'm sorry, I'm getting a headache. Let's just continue. Skarmory, surprising no one, offers some really useful defensive utility. The Steel Flying type is a great Koga counter, giving you a pivot against Claire because it baits Hydro Pump and not Dragon Pulse, and is a solid counter to Lance's Aerodactyl. Crobat was one of the weirdest Pokemon to test. It's fast enough and feels like it should have enough utility to be good, but I kept coming away from testing feeling like it just didn't do anything. Generically useful, but never shines. Even if it never did anything in battle though, it would be worth grabbing as a Zubat. It's an incredibly common encounter showing up on pretty much every nighttime and cave table, so you really want to get it out of the way early. Lapras is the single most consistent— okay, I'm just kidding, I'm not pronouncing it like that. Lapras is the single most consistent counter to Claire's Kingdra, able to tank its attacks and sit there while Parasong does the work. The biggest problem is you have to break the encounter routing chain to get it, because you have to delay Union Cave, but there you only get it— wait, on Fridays? Wait, what? Like Slowbro, Slowking is a bit underwhelming, but it does have some tools to make it a bit stronger. If you're okay with delaying its evolution to 39, you can get Slack Off to pair with its unique tools Nasty Plot and Psychic, a combination that makes it a better Kingdra answer than its brother. Vaporeon and Quagsire justify their space in your box purely for their roles as water absorbers that can switch in on Claire's Kingdra if you have a Steel type to bait Hydro Pump. The difference being that Vaporeon still has a Goldenrod opportunity cost, and Quagsire has a really good Kimono Girl matchup. Poliwrath, along with being a potential water absorber, plays a role on the Elite Four if you need an answer for Karen's Houndoom, although you can definitely do better. Finally, on top of B tier is Ursaring. You watch Nuzlocke content, you know all about the awesome power of Gut Sweepers. You can patch up its speed issues with Agility Pass strats and then obliterate anything in your sights with massive boosted facades, right? I mean, Ursaring doesn't learn facade by level up, but that's not a problem. There's a TM, right? How do you get it? Goldenrod City Lottery, but only on Fridays! What? We have to talk about this game, guys. This tier list is a goddamn mess. Do you know how many times during the testing, planning, or writing phase I found out about a new way of acquiring items or Pokemon that I'd never heard of before in HeartGold and SoulSilver, and just went, oh fuck, wait, that's a thing? I mean, it starts with trade evolutions. Those are relevant for every single Nuzlocke tier list. Do I include those? I mean, I did because they're interesting to talk about, but a lot of players play on cartridge and are never going to be able to get those. So do I then include the pre-evolutions as well for the people who can't get the trade evolutions? Next, there was the problem of stone evolutions. The earliest you can get stone evolutions most of the time is going to be Pokeathlon. But is everyone going to grind these minigames just to get like a Vileplume for Morty or something? How do I evaluate these Pokemon's usefulness? At which point do I start testing them against enemies? And let's not even talk about the fact that you can apparently get some stones earlier if like at the right date or the right weekday you call the right person or they call you. I'm already losing track. Then there's the choice scarf, which you get when you've sent enough money to your mom. At what point do I start evaluating this item? At what gym do I start testing Pokemon with the choice scarf? I mean, this matters, right? This matters for a Pokemon's tier list placement potentially. I just decided to start testing choice scarf when you get to the Elite Four because you'll probably have it by then, but I don't know. And my god, there is so many arcane ways of obtaining Pokemon in this game. The list includes, but is not limited to, Pokemon that can only be caught during a specific time of day, Surf encounters, Rock Smash encounters, Old Rod, Good Rod, Super Rod, General Headbutt Trees, Gift Pokemon, a casino in which the only way to generate coins is Voltorb Flip, Primo Eggs, Pokewalker encounters, specific Headbutt Trees that have their own separate encounter table, Bug Catching Contest, Hoenn Sinnoh Safari Radio, Zone block placement, Friday Morning Lapras in Union Cave, deleting every single one of your encounters while making sure your last remaining Pokemon doesn't have Surf or Fly while in deleting every single one of your encounters while in Cianwood so you can get a Tentacool. Wait, really? Huh. That's pretty cool, I guess. Anyway, in-game trades, Pal Mystery, bringing an Arceus to the ruins of Elf, roaming legendaries, completing a dating sim with Brock on a Saturday between exactly 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. for a Rhyhorn. Which of these can I even assume the average Nuzlocke player to do? Do I need to include all of these for this tier list to be definitive like it is in the title? I mean, probably, yeah, but like most of these are not going to be done by any player, and the Pokemon you get are often just useless anyway. So here's all the Pokemon that I decided not to include because I felt like they weren't relevant. The Safari Zone encounters just seem like such a hassle to get. Like, who really goes through this, only to then get a Sandshrew anyway that they're forced to catch? There's another way to get Tyranitar, which is catching a Larvitar in Mount Silver, the earliest place you can actually catch that thing, but like, that's only for one fight, right? That's only for red. Same goes for Sneasel. Yeah, Sneasel can't be caught in Ice Path, only at the very, very end of the game before the last fight. Electivire, Magmortar, and all the other Gen 4 trait evolutions are the same. You need Rock Climb to get their evolution items. For some reason, Pikachu is only in Viridian Forest in Kanto, so I didn't include Raichu because who cares? You can get the legendary birds in Kanto. Are you really gonna go through all of that? And then really late in my writing phase, I realized you can actually revive all the fossil Pokemon in Pewter City, and you can actually get all those fossils. Pokemon's Johto region and I have a complicated relationship. 4 years ago, I released a video titled Why Pokemon Gen 2 is the Worst in the Series, in which I gleefully make fun of many design choices that have always bothered me about these beloved games. The level curve, the new Pokemon all being borderline unusable, and the fact that the Cyndaquil line copies the Charmander line's base stats to the T. The video has accrued 1.5 million views at this point, and while I was certainly not the first person to come up with these criticisms, it's undeniable that I did a big part in popularizing them within the contemporary Pokemon fandom's rhetorical vocabulary. I touched briefly on HeartGold and SoulSilver in this video, mentioned that the remakes don't do a good job of addressing the fundamental issues of Generation 2. If you watch that video, you probably come away with the impression that I don't like these remakes very much. This isn't exactly true. For many Pokemon fans, HeartGold and SoulSilver are the peak of the series. Despite the strong opinions I held and still hold about these games, I fully understand why. These games are beaming with aesthetic direction and charm. The redesign of its overworld betrays that the development team not only had a unique understanding of what made Johto's traditional Japanese aesthetic special, but were able to even further refine this identity. Just look at the exterior of Bell Tower with its stunning autumn foliage. This is just one example of many. The architectural details all over this game are beautiful. The music reflects this idea as well. Lance's theme was already one of the best battle themes in all of Pokemon, but adding that subtle piano at the start of the song elevates the piece so much. Then there are the Pokemon sprites. Instead of taking the easy way out and reusing the sprites already present in Platinum, so many were reworked from the ground up for HeartGold SoulSilver. Pokemon like Rhydon and Aerodactyl have so much more personality thanks to these new poses. It's not like they just did this for Pokemon that didn't appear often in Platinum. Ubiquitous Gen 2 mons like Quagsire and Zubat got complete overhauls, and those Pokemon were all over Sinnoh. And if that wasn't enough, there's the universally beloved following Pokemon mechanic, the number one thing that everyone on the internet hopes for when a new Pokemon game is announced. This is a detailed and thought out mechanic. The Pokemon interact with you and the world around them constantly. They participate when you fish in the goddamn water. There are all these little features that didn't need to be in the game, but were added anyway. Things like taking photos with your Pokemon, putting on a rocket outfit during the Goldenrod quest, even location loading screen cards changing depending on what time of day it is. Then there's all the little minigames between Pokeathlon, Voltorb Flip, Safari Zone, and the Pokewalker. It's unbelievable how jam-packed these games are. Yet, I can't bring myself to truly love HeartGold and SoulSilver, because I'm the extreme minority of people whose primary reason for playing Pokemon games are the battles. Tragically, it feels like this is one thing that the developers did not care for. The design of enemy fights was already the weakest point of all of Gen 2 for me. The tragically weak gym leader teams, the overall lack of care in designing trainer lineups. This seems like such a nitpick, but this game is just stuffed to the brim with trainers like this late game Grunt and Rocket Hideout with a lineup of 4 level 16 Rattatas. Why? Why wasn't this changed from the original? Almost none of the fights in this game are remotely threatening or interesting in Gold and Silver, and there was no attempt to change this in the remakes. Changing level curves and lineups would have been a start, but I know this sounds crazy. Why couldn't Gen 3 and 4 Pokemon have been available to the player and enemy trainers throughout Johto? A lot of the restrictive and weak teams that these trainers had were due to a lack of strong Pokemon in Gen 2. Why not borrow a few from those other 2 generations you made instead of giving Will 2 Zatus again? Why just copy the Pokemon Battle Frontier from Platinum, the biggest late game battle challenge, 1-to-1? Why does basically every trainer in Kanto have an underleveled team of Stage 1 evolutions? Why does Chuck still have 2 Pokemon? Why does Faulkner still not have a Noctowl? The answer you might want to give is that the developers wanted to stay true to the original, but I think that's an excuse. They changed the game's plot, they added new characters, they even added the ability to get Pokemon like Yanmega and Tangrowth before reaching post-game. There's this GDC talk by the developers of Portal 2, where they talk about how they completely changed the look of elevators between Portal 1 and Portal 2, even though it makes no sense within the game's lore. They say that nobody ever even noticed this because the new elevators were so much cooler. One of them states, "There's no need to be a slave to the original. If you're improving it, players won't care." Would you have cared if that Rattata Grunt had a bit higher leveled and more diverse team? All those things I praised about these games' aesthetics prove that the game was willing to make changes that the development team thought would improve the experience. As a result, I can only assume that this was a decision based on development priorities, not on principles. Maybe they were right. Maybe nobody cares about battles in Pokemon games. Franz Kafkas' short story, Ein Hungerkünstler, and yeah, we're really doing this in a Pokemon tier list video, is about a circus performer who draws large crowds because of how long he can stay locked in a cage without eating a single bite of food. It's kind of like an early 20th century Mr. Beast video. Over the course of the story, the crowd's attention dwindles more and more until eventually he's relegated to a small cage all the way at the back of the circus, drawing basically no attention. At the end, the employees think that he's vanished and come in to clear out the cage, only to find him thin as a twig but still alive, buried in the hay. They ask him why he kept fasting even though nobody was watching him, and he replies with his final breath, "Because I couldn't find the food I liked. If I had found it, believe me, I should have made no fuss and stuffed myself, like you, or anyone else." I'm not saying HeartGold SoulSilver have nothing to offer. For many Pokemon fans, it's the equivalent of an artisanal bakery. I just think I may be gluten intolerant. Pokemon's Johto region and I have a complicated relationship. Oh, you're back. Yeah, so then at the end, I kind of decided to not include any of the Pokemon you can only catch in Kanto because, like, you'd only use them for Blue or Red, and they didn't seem particularly interesting for any of those fights. Anyway, here's A tier. Nidoking and Nidoqueen both serve the same purpose. They have insane move pools, meaning they're the perfect fillers for an Elite 4 team that really needs a Thunderbolt or Ice Beam user and can take a few hits. If you can get a Nidoking with a good speed nature, you can even outrun Lance's Dragonites, making it an easy bring to the Elite 4. Dugong was one of the standouts from testing. Aqua Ring, Rest, and Icy Wind all come together to give it incredible survivability and utility. It's one of the best Pokemon to deal with Claire, and can also do very well into all of Lance's Pokemon other than Gyarados. Need a get out of jail free card? That's pretty much what Butterfree becomes with the Compound Eye Sleep Powder combo. It's also one of the strongest answers into Bugsy's Scyther. Seriously, you can just bring this thing on like any fight and it'll like save you if you're struggling. Miltank isn't just strong on Whitney's team, it's just good all around. Solid stats, access to fast healing with Milk Drink, and a ridiculously deep move pool thanks to its ability to learn almost every TM. It's strong from basically as soon as you get it. You can use the thing in the Elite 4, where it can use its diverse move pool to do whatever you need it to do. Gengar is easy to pick up as a Ghastly early game and valuable from pretty much that moment onwards. It walls Bugsy's Scyther and can come to the Elite 4, putting it in work against Will, Koga, and Bruno. It's also great on the blue fight. It can even bail you out of a bad spot with Destiny Bond. Hypno is a Pokemon that can fill the support role on your team for a huge percentage of the game. It's particularly good as a supporting Pokemon against Miltank and an answer for Chuck's Poliwrath. Ampharos is similar, with solid enough moves and stats to fill in most fights. It's especially good against Claire thanks to its high special defense and offers a really diverse move pool. Mamoswine has one job and it does it well: destroy all Dragonites. It's fast enough to outrun all of them and make them trivial. Sudowoodo is shockingly valuable against the Elite Four. It ruins Karen's Murkrow and can even take out her Gengar with Sucker Punch. It's amazing into Koga, who has just one super effective move into rock types, and it's Ariados's Giga Drain. It's arguably one of the best answers in the early game to Lance's Aerodactyl, somehow dodging super effective damage from this beast's insane coverage and taking it out with Rock Slide. With a little bit of luck, you can even take out one of Lance's Dragonites after him. Magneton hits really hard, and while its bulk isn't amazing, its typing makes up for it. As a Steel type, it's one of the safest openers and pivots to use against Lance, and it'll give you some decent value throughout the Elite Four on the way to him. You have to get a little bit lucky to get Scyther, since it's only available through the bug catching contest prior to Kanto, but if you manage to roll it, you're golden. It destroys basically every random planer, obliterates Chuck, and has a ton of utility in the Elite Four thanks to its combo of power and speed, but we'll get to Scizor later. Meganium isn't quite good enough to earn the best starter label, but you won't regret taking it if you're a Chikorita fan. It's tanky enough to be a solid answer to Chuck. You can beat Claire's Kingdra with Specs Magical Leaf, can sweep Bruno with Swords Dance, and destroy Blue's Rhydon. Solid stuff from the early game all the way to the very end. Jumpluff can actually completely break the game if you run Substitute. You set up Leech Seed and mash Substitute and Protect until they die. I purposefully didn't use Substitute in my testing because I know that Substitute is the most broken move in the game and pretty much every Pokemon can be good with it, but this is an example where it really shines. But even without Substitute, Jumpluff still has quite a bit to offer. It's particularly great against Claire, soloing her Kingdra as well as Blue. But honestly, there are few situations where I wouldn't want to have this on my team. Just about every Steel type has a niche thanks to the presence of Claire's Kingdra, beating the rare guaranteed Hydro Pump to get your Water Absorb Pokemon in. But Steelix's uses go way beyond that. It's one of the best Pokemon at making the Elite Four consistent thanks to its massive bulk and Steel typing. It's probably the best Koga counter, best counter to Lance's Aerodactyl. It's also great on the two difficult Kanto fights, allowing you to pivot against Blue and serving as a solid lead against Red and his Pikachu. But now you should have already figured that the best starter award goes to Feraligatr. It starts providing value as soon as Whitney's Miltank, able to debuff with Leer, Scary Face, and Rock Smash. It can be taught the Dragon Claw TM to deal with Claire's Kingdra. It matches up well into the Kimono Girls. It's a bit inconsistent, but Agility Sword Dance can, theoretically, sweep the entire Elite Four. Starmie was S tier in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but it does fall off a little bit in HeartGold and SoulSilver. It's extremely held back by the fact that it doesn't learn a single Psychic move, and you don't get the Psychic TM until you get to Kanto. Despite that, most of the things that made it great in prior generations still apply here. It's still a great opener for Chuck, and can do plenty of work on the Elite Four with the rest of its kit. Lantern has unique defensive value thanks to its water and electric dual type, especially if you roll Volt Absorb and add that immunity and healing potential to its defensive profile. This makes it the best Pokemon in the game for an easy Kimono Girl gauntlet. It's also one of the best answers to both Lance and Blue, able to destroy their Gyarados and much more. It's also godlike on the Red fight. The Supreme Evolution, Espeon, is a fast and powerful Psychic type, and there are quite a few fights in the game where you want one of those. The only thing keeping this out of S tier is that it's a budget version of another Pokemon there. It's also still not the best Goldenrod encounter. And with that, we make it to S tier. What Pokemon is Espeon the budget version of? That's right, it's Girafarig. It's a rare Psychic type that actually gets early enough access to Psychic for it to matter, and it also gets Shadow Ball, making an incredible answer to other Psychic types. It can obliterate mid-game boss fights and the first 3 Elite Four teams with choice specs, and can simultaneously be a utility machine on Karen and Lance, using Agility and Baton Pass to set up other team members. It would be the best HeartGold Psychic type if it wasn't for the fact that it itself is a budget version of Alakazam, the clear best Goldenrod City encounter. You can get this thing as early as Whitney, and you will absolutely annihilate pretty much every fight from that point onwards. Morty, Chuck, every single trainer standing in your way. With 8 choice specs, you can genuinely sweep the first 3 Elite Four members. It's insanely fast and powerful, and lets you play really aggressively. It even does stuff on Blue. It's a pretty damn good Pokemon. You can get access to Scizor pretty early, right after Morty, by thieving a Metal Coat off of a Magnemite. It just goes crazy from there, and it's capable of fully sweeping the Elite Four. The defensive value of the Steel type is so good at letting it find chances to set up with Swords Dance and just obliterate everything there. It gets Roost to heal itself up as well. These next Pokemon are what I consider the core Pokemon to beat HeartGold SoulSilver. It is pretty easy to guarantee all of these upcoming encounters, and if you have them, you are probably going to win. These are the Pokemon worth routing for. This is how you beat HeartGold SoulSilver. It's sort of inaccurate to say that Golem is an S tier Pokemon, because that work is actually done by Geodude in the early game. But holy shit, Geodude is really that dude. Find it and you've all but punched your ticket through the first 3 gyms. Obviously it beats Falconer's Flyers and Bugsy's Bugs, but it also provides the rare value of soloing Whitney's Miltank. It's not terrible later by any means though. It's a solid Koga counter if you can dodge a turn 1 Giga Drain from Ariados. It's one of the better answers to Lance's Aerodactyl. It's also a very helpful dupe for getting good Pokemon down the line. Everything about finding an early Geodude works in your favor. Tentacruel doesn't do a whole lot until the Elite Four other than give you an okay matchup into Claire's Kingdra, but it might be the single most versatile Pokemon Pokemon for the entire Elite Four. You can give it Protect and Swords Dance to destroy Bruno, you can give it Ice Beam and Choice Specs to beat Lance's Dragonites, it can beat Karen's Houndoom, hell, if you find the right opportunity to set up on Umbreon, it can fully sweep Karen. That versatility means you can evaluate what your team really needs help with as you go through the Elite Four and tailor your Tentacruel to do whatever you need it to. Huge asset. The real reason why Feraligatr isn't quite S tier, despite being the best starter, Gyarados does everything that Feraligatr does in the Elite Four, but better and safer. Dragon Dance means it only needs one move slot for setup, and there's no opportunity cost to getting it because you don't have to pass up on Meganium. It's just a free encounter. Its flying type is a nice defensive asset, and it can use Intimidate to get extra value out of pivoting through it. Gyarados is definitely the most improved Pokemon from Fire Leaf Green up to HeartGold SoulSilver. Heracross is just so good on everything leading up to the Elite Four. Not even being a cringe fighting type can hold this thing's insane stat spread and defensive profile back. My god, this does so much damage. It can Gut Sweep, of course, but honestly, it's still great even if you roll Swarm. Because it's a headbutting counter, you can guarantee it by just headbutting on as many routes as you can until you've caught every other Pokemon on the Azalea Town encounter table. If you get past Bugsy and unlock the Headbutt Tutor, you can just assume you're making it to the Elite Four, because Heracross will win every single fight until then. And that's it. Heracross is the best Pokemon. But that's only in HeartGold, because the best Pokemon in a HeartGold SoulSilver Nuzlocke is none other than Lugia! That's right! SoulSilver still on top, baby! Lugia, still the best! Still the best after 26 years! 99 to 25! 99 to 25. Woo! Let's go, Lugia! Lugia is the best Pokemon in all of HeartGold SoulSilver. Get owned, Ho-Oh. Get honed, HeartGold Sims. Lugia! Woo! Lugia, still the best. Still the best after all these years. Bow down to Lugia, everyone. Put your hands together for Lugia. Sims. This video is sponsored by Holzkern. That's right. Lugia is still on top. Woo! Let's go, Lugia!